"Oh, I can't believe this," I muttered, staring at the locked door in disbelief. After a grueling day at work, I was greeted by the sight of my belongings, carelessly strewn in front of the house like discarded trash. The front door looked different new, perhaps, and no matter how hard I tried, it wouldn't open. It was as if the house itself was rejecting me, adding insult to injury after all the struggles I had to endure living with my in-laws. In that moment, something within me shifted. Enough was enough. I wouldn't set foot in that house again. With renewed determination, I gathered my things, packed them into the car, and decided to return to the one place that still felt like homey parents' house. Months passed in quiet reflection, until one day, out of the blue, a message arrived from my estranged in-laws, reopening a chapter I thought had closed. "My name is Emily, and I'm 35 years old. My husband, Tom, is 5 years younger than me. I had always been career-driven, and marriage wasn't really on my radar. Tom worked under me at the office, and although I never really dated before, he pursued me relentlessly. He promised that I could continue my career without worry, even after marriage, and that he'd take care of all the household duties himself. It was his persistence and reassurance that made me consider marriage in the first place. I wasn't opposed to having children either, even though marriage had never been a priority. The idea of having kids crossed my mind now and then. As I neared 35, I realized that if I wanted to start a family, time wasn't exactly on my side. So, I married Tom. For the first few months, it was just the two of us. He supported my career as promised, handling most of the household chores with ease. But everything changed 6 months into our marriage when my father-in-law passed away suddenly. His death left my mother-in-law and Tom's younger sister, Catherine, struggling to cope. Catherine, who was 33 at the time, worked as a freelancer, but spent much of her energy on fan activities, which meant her income was inconsistent. I always thought she should look for something more stable. One day, Tom approached me with a suggestion. "Emily, my mom and Catherine are having a really hard time. I was thinking, maybe we could move in with them. You can keep working as usual, and with everyone under one roof, the household chores will be even lighter for you. What do you think?" I hesitated. "Tim, I don't mind continuing to work, but I'm not sure about taking on more household responsibilities. If we're helping your mom, shouldn't she be doing most of the housework?" "You're all right," he agreed. "I'll talk to them about it. Just think it over." "Okay." I didn't give him an answer right away. I needed to know exactly what I was signing up for before making such a big decision. After all, caregiving is no small task, and I wanted clear boundaries. Eventually, Tom assured me that his family would handle all the chores. I considered asking for this in writing, but in the end, I trusted them. They were family, after all. So, we moved into his family home. The first day we arrived, I went to greet my mother-in-law, ready to start this new chapter together. "I'm really looking forward to living together," I said, hoping to set the tone for a peaceful arrangement. "As Tom may have mentioned, I'll be continuing with my work, so I'm hoping you and Catherine can take care of the household chores." My mother-in-law barely glanced at me before she muttered, "Why would Tom marry someone like her? She works all the time, so I'll end up doing everything around here. Is that how a wife should behave? A real wife would manage both work and the house." Her words stung, and I stood there, speechless, as she walked away, leaving me to process the bitterness behind her remark. What? This isn't what I expected at all. Unease settled over me. While we unpacked, Catherine appeared at the doorway, delivering her own brand of cruelty. "So, I've got a sister-in-law who's not exactly adorable. Poor Tom," she sneered before disappearing. Not again. First my mother-in-law, and now Catherine. I couldn't understand why they want to leave with me if they despise me so much. It wasn't until later that I realized it wasn't about me, it was about my money. Shortly after we moved in, I noticed something troubling. Despite their earlier snide remarks, my mother-in-law and Catherine completely ignored me. They only cooked meals when Tom was home and never lifted a finger to help with cleaning or laundry, especially not for me. I tried confronting them about their broken promises, but each time, I addressed my mother-in-law with respect, calling her ma'am. She'd give me a cold, dismissive look and walk away. Catherine wasn't quite as sharp, but she didn't offer any help either. In the end, I found myself doing all the laundry and cleaning after work, day after day. I wanted to talk to Tom about it, but I hesitated out of sympathy for him. Still, things got worse. Whenever they needed money for their hobbies or outings, they started dropping hints, never directly asking me, but leaving notes under my food, as if they couldn't be bothered to ask to my face. Just today, I found a note from my mother-in-law. "We're short on cash this month. Could you lend us $300? I thought about telling Tom, but he was already stretched thin financially, thanks to his constant social obligations and drinking habits. He often asked, "Can we cut down on expenses this month?" Back when Tom worked under me, I always made sure he didn't overspend, but now that he had a new job, he found it hard to say no to invitations. The costs piled up. I felt trapped, so I reluctantly handed over the money, treating it as a loan money I never expected to be repaid. This went on for 2 years. Tom became more comfortable relying on my income, while I grew used to supporting everyone. It became a routine I despised, but there was something else I did, which I'll explain later. One day, I came home to find my belongings scattered outside the house. Confused, I inspected them closely and realized they were mine. What is this? Anger boiled inside me. I marched up to the door and tried to unlock it, but the key no longer worked. They changed the locks. I can't believe this, I muttered furiously, surveying my belongings on the ground. I noticed a note tacked under them. It read, "Don't ever come back. We don't want to see you again. Be grateful we didn't throw your stuff out." My mind raced. My in-laws had clearly orchestrated this. As for Tom, his silence said it all. I grabbed my car keys, loaded as much of my stuff as I could into the car, and drove straight to my parents' house, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. At least I still had control over my work. When I arrived, my parents were shocked but welcoming. It had been so long since I'd been home, but sitting there, sipping the tea my mother made, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. My father broke the silence, asking gently, "Why did you bring all your things? Did you leave? Marriage takes patience, you know." His words weighed heavily on me. I had been patient to long years of patience with my mother-in-law, Catherine, and Tom, but over time, Tom had become more dependent on my income, and I felt more like an ATM than a partner. Finally, I confided everything to my parents. They listened, nodding in understanding. "Emily," my mother said softly, "you've endured enough. You don't have to go back there. You've done your part." My father added, "Maybe it's time to consider sending Tom divorce papers. He seemed like a good man when you married him, but money can change people. It's a shame, really." Both my father and mother showed me a genuine sympathy I hadn't felt in years, and it took me by surprise. Tears began to well up unexpectedly. "Has it been that hard for you?" my father asked, his face filled with concern. "No, it's just, I haven't felt this kind of understanding in so long. It's comforting," I replied, wiping my eyes. After a moment, I added, "Like you said, Dad, I'll send Tom the divorce papers, but I want to see how things play out first. I have a feeling something interesting is going to happen soon." And indeed, I wasn't wrong. About 3 months later, that moment arrived. By then, I had moved out of my parents' house and into a new apartment of my own. I never imagined how freeing it would be to finally control my own earnings, to spend them however I pleased. I hired a housekeeper for the chores, allowing me to enjoy my days off without guilt. I took trips, bought things I long wanted. It felt like reclaiming my life. Every day reminded me of the value of my hard-earned money. I started questioning why I put up with those 2 miserable years. Looking back, it was clear I'd been manipulated, maybe even gaslighted, by my in-laws. Then, 3 months to the day after they changed the locks and threw my things out, my phone rang with an unexpected call. I almost ignored it at first. After dismissing the first, then the second, the third came through urgently. They must be in trouble, I thought, deciding to pick up the fourth call. "Hello, Emily, where are you? I went to your parents' house, but they wouldn't tell me. I even tried your workplace, but they wouldn't say anything either." It was my mother-in-law. After 2 years of ignoring me, here she was, her voice cautious, almost desperate. I didn't say anything, just waited, curious to hear what she'd say next. "Hello, Emily, are you there? Come back home already. We need you. We can't even afford to go out and enjoy ourselves anymore. I thought we could manage without your income, but clearly, I was wrong. Our phone and electricity are about to get cut off. We're at our limit. Please, come back immediately." I couldn't believe it. There was no apology for how they treated me, no acknowledgement of their wrongdoing, just demands. Did you really think I'd rush back just because they were uncomfortable? "Emily, say something. You're hearing this, right? Don't you care that we're in such a bad situation?" Her frustration was palpable, but without even a hint of remorse, I simply hung up. She had no clue. The very next day, my phone buzzed again. "Hello, Emily, why did you ignore Mom yesterday? We're in trouble, and you didn't even try to help. Mom said she wasn't sure if you were even listening. Ignoring someone like that is really immature, don't you think?" It was Catherine this time, and hearing her self-righteous tone irritated me. She, of all people, had the nerve to lecture me on ignoring calls. After they'd ignored me for 2 years, I was the one in the wrong. I stayed silent, letting her words wash over me without response. Without an apology, there was nothing to say. Look, we're facing serious financial issues. The phone and electricity are going to be cut off soon, and we can't survive this heat without AC. We might even get heat stroke. Do you want that on your conscience? If our phone gets cut off, how will we reach you? You need to come back and help us pay the bills. Her selfishness was astounding, making it all too easy for me to ignore her again. Hey, are you even listening? You haven't said a word. Oh, come on. You're not still upset about what happened 3 months ago, are you? It was obviously just a joke. You're overreacting. As an adult, you should know the difference between a joke and something serious. Stop being stubborn and just come back home. I couldn't believe the audacity. They tossed my belongings out like garbage and changed the locks to make sure I couldn't get back in. That's not a joke, it's a crystal clear message. Even if Catherine tried to brush it off now, claiming it was all some kind of prank, it was too late for that. Without an apology in sight, I decided to hang up. Continuing the conversation was pointless. The next day, I finally got a call from Tom. Hello, Emily. I'm sorry. My mother, my sister, and you realize we've done terrible things. Please come back. The house is falling apart. We're out of money. Everyone's tense, and it's just been a mess. We sincerely apologize, and we really want you to come home. At least Tom attempted an apology, but it was far too late. Where had he been for the past 3 months? If he'd reached out in the first few days, I might have considered returning, but after 3 months of silence, I had moved on. I was thriving in my newfound independence, enjoying every moment of my freedom. There was no reason for me to go back. I appreciate your apology, Tom, but I have no intention of coming back. You disappeared for 3 months. How could you do that as my husband? And to top it off, I know you've been cheating. The detective agency confirmed it. So, thanks for treating me like an ATM for 2 years. I'll be sending the divorce papers, and I expect you to handle it properly. I could almost hear him freeze on the other end. Maybe Tom thought he could get away with it, but he was wrong. Still, he had the nerve to say, I want you to come back. Well, I replied with a cold edge. If you reimburse me for all the living expenses I covered for your family over the past 2 years, and pay back the money I lent you, maybe I'll consider it. Let's see, that's around $20,000. Can you manage that? I knew he couldn't, but I said it anyway. His silence said it all, and soon enough, he hung up. Perhaps he finally realized I was serious. What happened next? I sent over the divorce papers and a bill for compensation for the distress he caused me. To my surprise, Tom quickly signed the papers. All that's left is for me to file them at the city office to make the divorce official. As for the compensation, he transferred the money right away. I had included a note threatening to expose his affair to his company if it didn't pay promptly. Out of fear, he must have scrambled to get a loan to cover them out. From what I've heard, their family home is now up for sale. It seems they're struggling financially and are desperate for cash, but selling their home like that, now they'll have to rent somewhere. And with the cost of rent and utilities, I'm sure it won't be easy for them. It's clear they didn't think through the long-term consequences of their decision, but whatever happens to that family is no longer my concern. As for me, I'm fully enjoying my single life. I've had my fill of marriage. From here on out, I plan to work hard, focus on myself, and relish my independence. Life's too short to be tied down by people who don't value you.